Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another special edition of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my immediate left, our special guest, Mr. Breyer Hill. And I wanted to acknowledge this young man for a moment, because if you look on your screen, you'll see where it says the 10 Commandments on Asaph Cafe. Young Breyer here has been doing special effects with the green screen technology, making it possible for us to put ourselves on the backdrop of shows and cartoons, and he's been putting the, what do you call the title credits? Is that the name?
I'm not sure what you'd call it. I've just been photoshopping like the movie titles onto there so the audience knows.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to do a one-on-one with Breyer here, and before we start, this is the set of the movie The 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston. Now, Breyer here has not seen this film, but he's very young, so we'll talk about the synopsis of this film, and we'll talk about Breyer for the television audience here and so on. This will go by real fast. It's about 10:32 right now. So I wanted to just acknowledge you on camera, first of all, and let the people know who has been putting Asaph Cafe on the green screen technology.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and this will be part of your MCAT experience.
Yep.
And a couple of years from now, you'll be able to probably use this as a resume. Who knows?
Yep.
But that's a beautiful backdrop there. And so again, for the television audience, this is Breyer Hill. He's the one that's making this show possible to put ourselves on all these backdrops and credits. And we've done everything from, what was it, Frosty the Snowman?
Mm-hmm. We've done lots of stuff.
Oh yeah, the Time Tunnel, I think it was, and the Voice at the Bottom of the Sea. Voice at the Bottom of the Sea. Those are all television shows from the past, and so Breyer here has made it possible to put Asaph Cafe on these backdrops. And it's interesting because I used to watch these shows, including this movie here we'll talk about in a moment, when I was a kid, and I never thought I'd ever grow up and see myself technically on
on them.
on the show in a small way. Now let's talk about this. The name of this movie is called The 10 Commandments. And they've done a lot of 10 Commandments movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on the Old Testament. But this one is probably the most fanciest one, as you can see from the backdrop here. This is the scene here where the Lord tells Moses to go to Pharaoh, because see, Pharaoh had captured the children of Israel, the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
And turned them into slaves. So he was like making them work really long hour days and building cities and stuff. And they had a scene in there where Pharaoh would provide the straw for the people to build. But then Pharaoh decided they were lazy, so he decided he wasn't going to give them straw. So the Israel people had to get the straw plus build all the stuff and not lose any time. And they were being whipped, stuff like that. He was just nasty. So in this scene here, the Lord decided he's had enough. I'm going to set those people free. So he sends Moses to Egypt to get in Pharaoh's face and say, let my people go. It's Hollywood movies. They just kind of like get all dramatic.
Got to dramatize it a bit.
Well, to make it fun. So this is the first confrontation where Moses stands before Pharaoh and says, let my people go. And of course, Pharaoh's hard-headed. He said, who is your God? I don't know your God. I'm not letting these people go. So the Lord says, oh, really? Okay, we'll see about that. So what the Lord does is sends a bunch of plagues. Like there was an invasion of flies. And we're not talking about a little swarm like in those movies, Mm-hmm. This was so intense that there were flies everywhere, like in their bedrooms, on their clothes, and their stoves, and their kitchen. It was like all in one, just that kind of a plague. Mm-hmm. And so that didn't work. So the Lord sent gnats and 3 days of darkness and hail, falling out of the sky. And there were like 10 distinct plagues because hard-headed Pharaoh wouldn't let those people go. And so finally what caused him to let those people go, the Lord says, take a lamb, kill it, and spread the blood on the doorpost like a form of a cross, just on the top and on the sides of the doorpost. And when the angel, because I'm going to send the angel, I'm going to wipe out all the firstborn. And the angel not only wiped out the firstborn of people, wiped out the firstborn of cattle. Anything that was firstborn got slaughtered that night, just instantly. So to be saved from that death penalty, the Lord tells them to kill the lamb. And the ones that believed and were obedient, they put the blood on the doorpost on the side. And so when the angel came by at midnight, so why is it always midnight? Like they said in the Shrek movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, at midnight, the angel comes and kills the firstborn. And see the little boy on the left of your screen?
Yep.
That depicts, it's a movie, he was Pharaoh's son. So the real Pharaoh, his son, actually was the firstborn, so he died. And any of the people that worked for Pharaoh, their firstborn died. And they showed that in this film here.
So were the people that put the crosses up saved then?
Yeah, they were saved from
Okay.
the death angel. The ones that took the blood and put it on the top of the door and on the sides, it sort of like forms a cross a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
And so when the angel came at midnight, they were saved. The ones that believed, like Moses. And in this scene here, well, not this scene, but in this movie, there were some people that were working in Egypt. They got scared. So they go knocking on Moses' door before the death angel comes and says, "Hey, we want some mercy. Can we come and hide under this cross, under this blood?" And Moses is like, "Come on in." So there were like a couple of guys that defected from Pharaoh because they knew they were going to die. And so when the death angel comes, Pharaoh's son dies, and that's what causes Pharaoh to finally release the people.
Finally
And it was
makes them
something like,
believe.
yeah, he's like, "Take them people, get out of here.
Get out of here."
Go, you're free." But that was short-lived because after there were like 2 million people, according to the Old Testament story, and they were on their way to freedom. They were going to the promised land and everything, and Pharaoh just gets ticked off. What? Why did we let these people go? Let's go back and get them back and bring them back and make them slaves,
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure he didn't want to lose his workers.
Yeah, well, you would have thought that after the death of your kid, you'd back off, right?
Mm.
But he gets hard-headed again, so he goes and sends his army after those people. And so then the people are at the edge of the river, I guess, or the ocean or the river or whatever, and they were trapped because the Pharaoh's army was coming. And so Moses says, "Stand back and see the salvation of the Lord at work." All of a sudden, the water splits in half.
Yep.
And then the people go right through on dry land. And they're like going through the river there, like these big, tall, towering walls. Can you imagine what that must have been like for real?
No.
To see that? And so as soon as the Israel people get on across, here comes Pharaoh and his army. They're coming. And they're like probably, I'd say, halfway between where they started.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't like turn around and run back to get out of harm's way if they wanted to. And so as soon as the last Israelite person gets across, the waters fall and it covers all of Pharaoh and Pharaoh's army and so on, and they drowned. Now that's in the Old Testament, and that's finally how they got free of that. Talk about persistence, huh?
Yeah. You said you've seen that set. Where's that at, in Hollywood somewhere?
Well, you got to remember, this was like 30, 40 years ago when I was there. I was pretty
Mhm.
young. I was probably about your age when I saw it. Yeah, it was at the Universal Studios Tour is what they
Oh, that's
called it
cool.
at the time.
I might have seen that too. I think I've been to Universal Studios
Have you?
in
Well,
California.
with the computer age and everything, it's
Mhm.
probably more fancied and different.
Mm-hmm.
But how they did that scene, I'll tell the television audience in case they don't know. Well, everybody probably knows. They had a regular camera, like a small, like can camera,
Mhm.
is the way to describe it. And there was a little puddle of water. So they put the camera on the ground and they had these suction devices underneath so that it would cause the water to move just slightly like this. But with the camera on the ground, it has the illusion
Mhm.
like it's a big...
Yeah, being so close makes it feel
Yeah.
big and real.
And that's how they did it. And then, of course, when we went through the water, we weren't really walking.
Mhm.
It was really a small little train, like a roller coaster train. So you're like disappointed when you're looking down like this, like, oh man, that's all it
Yeah,
is.
that looked way cool.
But on camera, it
Mhm.
totally different. So this is a scene here. So you and I are on the set of the Ten Commandments. This movie came out in 1956. I wasn't even born in 1956, so you really weren't born then. But they usually show it every year on television, probably, I don't know, ABC or something like that, you know.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, let me play a soft tune here. I'll ask you some questions. I always play the song. My theme song, This Guy's in Love with You. And I don't know if you know this song or not.
Probably not.
Let me play it for you, Craig. It's a very popular song to this day. Beautiful song. This is a cool song. I mean, everybody from the past used to do this song. Singers of all, bands. It's a beautiful song.
What artist wrote this?
Pardon?
What artist wrote this? Do you know?
Yeah, Burt Bacharach wrote it. I'll tell you about him in a moment. And here's the conclusion. They had violins doing that part. And the conclusion. It's a still catchy tune to this day. But the name of the song is called This Guy's in Love with You. And of course, when women did it, they say this girl's in love with you. And a composer named Burt Bacharach wrote that song. He wrote up hundreds of songs in the early 60s. Some of the songs like I'll Say a Little Prayer for You, you probably won't know that song.
Yeah.
And Alfie and all these other popular songs of that time period. But that one that I played was probably the most popular. And of course, Bacharach wrote it, but he didn't introduce it. There was a famous trumpeter named Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. They're the ones that introduced that song.
Nice.
And it was pretty cool. And I don't know if you know who the Carpenters were. Karen Carpenter, Richard Carpenter. Have you
I
ever
know
heard of
that
them?
name.
Yeah, they did a song like Close to You. It went something like this. You recognize it?
I don't think so.
Not this part either. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. That's called Close to You. That was the Carpenters, one of their biggest hits. The reason I'm mentioning them is because they were on the show with the trumpeter Herb Alpert. In fact, Herb Alpert was on their show when he introduced This Guy's in Love with You.
Nice.
And since he was a trumpeter, what they did out of prop, this was interesting, they had a big giant letter H that represents Herb. So the line that goes from the letter H, they had the musician sitting there with his horn. So they had this like orchestra in the background. You don't see him, but you hear him. So he's just singing the lyrics to the song, and then at the end he picks up his horn, he's just playing the melody. And it was way cool. Pretty cool. Well, let's talk about you for a little bit. Your name is Breyer Hill.
Yep.
Now, are you a student at the university?
I am a student at the university. I'm a sophomore right now.
You're a sophomore there? Yeah.
Yep.
What are you studying at the university?
Media arts right now.
And how long have you been associated with this MCAT studio?
Just a couple months now. I started working here at the beginning of this school year.
Okay, and how did you get involved with MCAT?
I know Joel from way back. He's a family friend, so.
Okay, so Joel made it possible
Joel
for you
made
to-
it possible for me.
And you've been doing it a few months?
Yep.
Besides you doing some of the special effects on my show, what are some of the other things you do here for MCAT?
I help Joel with the Out and About show. We go out and film nonprofits in Missoula and just see
Okay.
what they're all about and how they help Missoula.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
And you just do like the behind the scenes,
Mhm.
help
I
with that, and you do the
I
filming
do all
and
the
that?
filming for it. Yep.
Okay, you do any interviews and stuff like that too?
Joel usually does the interviews when we're
Okay.
out there.
That's cool. And doing this show here, this one-on-one, this could be probably part of your MCAT experience. I
Mhm.
appreciate you taking time to hang out with me on this. Now, you have family, obviously, here.
They're from Great Falls, actually.
Great
That's where I'm
Falls.
originally from, a small town outside of Great Falls.
Okay, so your family's still in Great Falls and you're
Yep.
here? All right. And are you living on campus?
No, I have a small house with a couple of my friends.
I mean, but they're
They're university students too.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's always the best way to go, I think, if you're a college student, if you can live in a house instead of a dorm.
Yeah, it's
There's
way
more of an
so
intimacy
much
and
better.
privacy, yeah. Because, I went to school too. It wasn't a university, I went to a conservatory. conservatory is it's a special kind of a music college
Okay.
where they train you for the opera, and they train you to be like a guitarist if you want to be like Eric Clapton. And what they used to do is they'd make you go to class every day, just like a university, and you're studying anything music-related, theory, practicing, writing, music history and stuff. Like, I'm sort of giving you a little history.
Cool.
But the history at the conservatory is a little bit more intense because they're talking about Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin and all the rest. Yeah. And then another thing they used to make us do is go out to the cafes in San Francisco and do these little performances at the cafe. It didn't pay much, it only paid about $50.
Yeah.
But you got the experience.
You got to get your feet wet a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Get yourself
And
out
so
there.
the conservatory would set that up for these students. Like if you're a guitar player, you'd be like playing guitar, maybe singing during a lunch hour or some crazy thing like that. But it was fun.
Yeah, no,
but-
I really enjoy college. It's been fun so far.
Yeah, well, good for you. And do you have a minor or anything? in school?
Not yet. I'm thinking about adding one, but I don't know what to add yet.
And you said it was media arts, right?
Mhm.
That your major? Is
Yep.
that what they call it?
Yep.
Media arts major? Okay. So what are your future plans as far as that kind of media work?
Honestly, I think I kind of want to work somewhere like this. Maybe MCAT's changed my opinion. I thought I wanted to do like advertising and stuff like that, and like advertise for companies, like design billboards and flyers and that kind of thing. But since working at MCAT, I kind of like the atmosphere here and
Yeah.
how relaxed everybody is.
Turn it a little bit. I'm just playing this while I'm talking to you. This song is called Santa Lucia, a little folk tune. They don't do folk tunes anymore. And here's the conclusion. I'll see if I can think of something that you might know. And that's it, Santa Lucia. That song is older than you and I probably put together. Yeah. That goes way, way back. But they did a series of folk tunes, probably in the 50s and 60s. I'm going to name some artists that you probably won't know, like Joan Baez.
Mm-mm.
How about Bob Dylan?
I know who that is. Yep.
Okay, well, he was probably the main person of that era. Peter, Paul, and Mary, and they had the Mamas and the Papas, and they were all pretty much the same. They sang songs of that era about what was going on in the world, which is tame compared to today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what they might have been fighting for then was maybe equal rights, for people and women, or like, unifying instead of dividing because of racial stuff. Because this is going to sound crazy and unthinkable. When I was growing up, they actually had separation of black and white people, which is insane.
Yeah.
And they literally had signs over the drinking fountains that said coloreds here and whites here. And if you were African American, you could not drink out of a regular public drinking fountain that said whites only. Isn't that insane?
It's mind blowing.
It's just, and this was in my lifetime as a kid, probably about 7 or 8, something like that. So it just shows you how times have changed. So the folk singers of that era were singing, hey, we shouldn't be segregated. They called it segregated then. But this shows you how crazy it was in this country then. So they had all those people like Bob Dylan and all the rest, and they would like team up with the African American people that started the civil rights movement, which you've probably heard of, just to say, hey, put a stop to this. Let's get black and white together in public school and just stop all this crazy segregation stuff. It's ridiculous. I don't care what color person is.
It doesn't
My
matter.
goodness, I was not raised that way.
Yeah.
And I figure if Captain Kirk can make love to a green lady,
Then it shouldn't matter.
it shouldn't
It
matter.
shouldn't.
I don't know if you saw that scene on Star Trek. He was making out with this green-colored lady, and only in the movies.
Yeah.
So let's get back to you. So you're in your second year of school, right? And
Yep.
what kind of hobbies do you like?
I like fly fishing and photography.
Okay,
Mostly.
photography.
Yep.
And you have brothers and sisters?
Yep, I have 2 little brothers.
They're Great Falls.
Yeah, one of them's 5 and the other one's
Little.
17.
Oh, okay.
So
we're talking
there's
little.
a big
Okay,
gap
there's a big
between.
gap. Cool. And no sisters, right? Just 2 brothers?
Yep, just 2 brothers.
Now, you do realize your parents are probably going to see this
Yep.
show. In fact, I can make you 2 copies of this. And mail it
Yeah,
to
I
your
should send
family.
them one.
Yeah, you should. And your friends will most likely see this because this is going to be on Facebook and YouTube.
It'll be on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it'll
Yep.
be on YouTube.
I'll make sure to show them.
Feel free to send it out. I'm trying to expose this show anyway because I have a plan for this show. I want to see if I can take this show and get it on regular television. You remember that Lawrence Welk show I was telling you about?
Mhm.
Well, that's going to be too hard because, with the orchestra and all. So I think if I work my way up, like do an interview one-on-one kind of thing, then I can lead up
And
to
hopefully,
that.
yep.
So yeah, feel free to send this out of Asaph Cafe. I gotta tell you about I don't know did I ever tell you the history of this show, how I got started? All right, 3 years ago, I came to this MCAT studio for the first time. I'm gonna play some chords, and I'm like you. I met Joe, and this was July of 2014 at that time, and I was just getting some basic information about how to do a show. And Joe says, "Well, if you do something like, say, a Lawrence Welk show," and when he said that, that's when the on switch came on. And I went home and secured the copyright, and I started writing a script for a brand new Lawrence Welk music show. And so by the time September came around of that year, 2014, we did what was called a 1-hour promo. And it was called a promo, Music with Asaph. And what we were telling the TV audience is that there's going to be a brand new television show called Music with Asaph, which will be shot at the Florence Hotel, and we had the Mayor John Ingen on there too. So we were just doing this 1-hour promo. And at the beginning of that promo, we see those 2 brick walls?
Yep.
We had a little primitive cafe setting. And at the very beginning, I just blurted out, "Welcome to Asaph Cafe. We're doing a promo for the new Lawrence Welk show." And so after we did that promo, I had 3 hours recording time. And I said to my guests, "Why don't we just do an hour show called Asaph Cafe?" So from an accidental blurting out Asaph
that's where it
Cafe, that's how
started.
it got started.
That's cool.
And then as it started expanding, we went from 2 of those brick walls to 3 of the brick walls, and then it just expanded until eventually we got to the green screen technology leading up to this year. So that's kind of the history of Asaph Cafe.
It's a cool evolution.
Yeah, and at first, what I used to do is I used to just go to the streets of downtown Missoula and just recruit people at random and ask them if they wanted to be on television, and half the time it would work. But as the show started expanding, it was getting too hard to get people spur of the moment to be on the show. So I started inviting guests. But I kept the format as far as the impromptu thing, like what you and I are doing now.
Yep.
And it worked.
Is that when Emmett started coming in?
No, Emmett, I didn't even know him then. I had a young lady named Patty Reed, and she started showing up at that time in 2014 and part of 2015, so I made her a co-host. And she started coming every week, and then people started coming. And then we had other people, like a lady named Linda Brooks Curtis, who started becoming a regular, along with Patty. And then when Patty left, Linda started coming all the time. And then a lady named Teresa Toico started showing up. And then she became a regular. And it just started expanding. And it wasn't always one-on-one. Sometimes we'd have like 3 or 4 people on. You know, like when we did our Christmas special for 2014 that first year, we had these big long tables. And it just expanded. And when I first created this show, I didn't think it was going to work. I was thinking, oh man, nobody's going to watch this interview kind of show. Because it's not the interview in the sense of serious interviews. We're not here to convert or change anyone or anything political or religious. I just wanted to avoid those topics. Not because I don't believe in the Bible and stuff, but I just don't think that's a good idea necessarily. So we started going like comedy. Like, we had a guy on there one time, and the subject came up, if you could be a superhero, who would you be? I thought he was going to say Superman or the Flash or something. He chose Wonder Woman. I was like, okay. And my first thought was, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So we started talking about the attributes of Wonder Woman. You know how she has like the bracelets that deflect bullets, and you know. And it turned out to be pretty funny that this guy was on and wanted to be Wonder Woman.
Why did he want to be Wonder Woman?
I don't know. He just, for whatever reason, he chose Wonder Woman, and we were on camera, and I wasn't going to say cut, because it's impromptu. And see, this is good for me, which might be good for you in the future, because it gives my acting, well, not acting, I should say interview chops going. You know what I mean? Just to be able to just think up stuff, spur of the moment.
Yeah, and to be able to hold a conversation.
Yeah,
too.
and so that worked for me. Now, in the year 2014 and 2015, we had actual food, like, we're talking fried chicken.
So you were
mashed
actually
potato.
eating
We
food
actually
back
had
then.
actual food.
Sure,
And it
that
was
was a mess.
Yeah, it was provided by the Missoula Senior Center, because I was playing the piano there at the time. And it got to the point where it was just too messy. Food falling on the floor, people eating cake. It started getting into the instrument and stuff, and we had to stop. So if it's something like a sandwich or drinking water or soda, that's fine. But Asaph Cafe, I just started my 3rd year now. And for the television audience, every 15 episodes, we call it a new season. It would be impossible to do a little year, like regular NBC television. So Asaph Cafe has just become a fixture, a delight in my life. And it's good. And it's a community thing. We've had Mayor John Egan on several times. I've had people that do serious stuff, like we had one guest on one time that ran in the, what do you call the Missoula Olympics?
Like the marathon?
The marathon, yeah. That's it, the marathon. So we had him on. And we've had, I guess, guests that do things for the community on the show and stuff. And it's just, it works.
So how many seasons have you had?
I'm in my 13th season right now.
Oh, man.
So actually, that's close to 200 episodes.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Emmett's show is the only show that has the most watched shows of the MCAT thing, because he's been here for many, many years now. He's probably done thousands of shows, I guess.
What show does he do?
He does a show called The Awful Truth About Society, where he gets into more serious stuff, where I just get into more comical stuff.
Yeah, I could see that.
So he might talk about, what goes on in public schools that shouldn't be happening, like if there's a shooting, maybe. He gets into more
Stuff like that.
in-depth stuff, whereas in the case of Asaph Cafe, it's just more
Just all fun.
comical, just off the cuff, talking stuff. And how this green screen came into being, I'll tell the history of that. Do you remember a show called The Gong Show? Have you ever seen it? Well, it was sort of like The Voice, but it was an amateurish version. You know how, like, you watch The Voice and American Idol, how intense and...
Yeah.
Well, they had a show, oh gosh, maybe 30 years ago called The Gong Show, and it was just the silliest, but it was fun silly. You didn't have to be like no Miley Cyrus or anything and sing really well. It would just be like housewives that show up, or college students. And, they just had fun. And they had the 3 movie stars in the background, of that time period. Like, say, Jamie Farr, the actor on MASH, that played Klinger.
Okay.
He was like a regular. And what they did, they had this set where the stars would be sitting in front of these gongs, literal Chinese gongs. And they had a gong in their hand, and they had this big gong on the side. And it was 3 behind, it was 3 stars, so they had a gong here and then a big gong here, so they can hit either one. If they liked you, they just give you points, like The Voice. No big deal. If they didn't like it, they'd take this gong and they'd hit it. This guy with his big hook would come out, put a hook around it and pull you off stage. And then this African-American fellow would come and do these little dance moves while they were setting up for the next act to come out. It was just such a family, fun-oriented show. But where I'm going with this is when the host of that show finally passed away, I did a tribute to him. And we did our first green screen thing. We put ourselves on The Gong Show, since it was called The Gong Show. And it worked.
And that's where it started?
That's where it started. His name was Chuck Barris. I did a tribute to Chuck Barris and The Gong Show. We put ourselves on The Gong Show, which looked primitive compared to this here, because his set was primitive. And this was probably about 6-7 months ago, something like that. Maybe
So
a
you
year
just
ago.
recently started? with
Yeah,
the green
it
screen.
could within about a year. I forget what year he passed. He might have been gone for about a year now, something like that. Chuck Barris. He was a very funny guy, not a comedian. He was just a host, and it was so funny because usually when you have a host of a show, they just kind of they lay low, and he did too. But he was always dancing and doing all this crazy stuff while people were singing, and it worked. Because then they focused on camera on him. I was like, let's see what this man's going to do next now. And he would always introduce guests, and he wore this outrageous hat. And it was just so funny. But he passed away. He was like 80-something. I did a tribute, and from there we've been doing green screen technology ever since. And when we first started, well, prior to his passing, we did some shows with green screen, but it wasn't like this where we put ourselves on a show. It was just a little backdrop that I used all the time, just a primitive green screen. But when we put ourselves on the Gong Show, that's when we found our niche. It worked. And then we started doing other television shows or movies like King Kong, the 1933 King Kong movie, and of course the Voice at the Bottom of the Sea, which you did, and all that other stuff. So now it's the Ten Commandments.
No, I think that's cool. It gives you opportunity to like change it up every week.
Yeah, and because like I was doing like the same set for 15 shows.
Yeah.
And that kind of got a little So, but this is where Asaph Cafe is now, and even when we have more people on, like you remember that one with the Green Hornet that we did with that family?
Yep.
So it's working. This show just seems to go from different regulars and so on, and it just seems to take different directions. And at this time, we're doing backdrops of shows, and there's so many shows that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably be doing this show. I'll know when it's time to stop. I had almost gave up the show once before, but I got advised not to.
Yeah. No, I think you should keep doing it.
Yeah,
I
might
like
as well.
it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Excuse me, let me get a tissue here. Make yourself at home. So I'm glad you're hanging out with me today.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, this is fun. This Asaph Cafe is just such a delight in my life.
I like learning about all these old shows that you tell me about too.
Yeah, well, I'm just giving you
Like a general.
a general. There's more to it, you know. And you know, over 35 minutes have already gone by. Can you believe
Holy
that?
cow.
Yeah. I
It's
told you,
flew
once
by.
you do this, and sometimes what I do is I'll do 2 tapings depending, just to stay on top. Now for the television audience here, get off character for a second. I'm getting ready to play starting next Friday at the Southgate Mall for the entire holiday. So this episode, unless we do another one, is my last Asaph Cafe for the rest of the year. And then I'll come back probably the first Thursday after New Year's and all.
So around January then?
Yeah, around first or second week in January. So I'm glad to get to share this last Asaph Cafe for 2017 with you one-on-one and hang out. But it's fun, so anytime you want to be on, if you're not working, yeah, you're always welcome. And I think that's such a beautiful set, so you can share this with your family. And, you know, if you know friends, college friends, anybody that wants to be on, it's impromptu.
Yeah, I'll ask my roommates and see if they want to come down.
And you can just show them, and you can look up past Asaph Cafes, and you can show them your work too, because, you know, since you've been getting involved, I think this has been getting more professionally technical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good experience as far as the, you know, what do you call the special effects, putting like the Ten Commandments on Asaph Cafe and stuff like that. Just fun.
Yeah, it's cool. I get to see something that I helped work on.
Yeah, and now you're a part of it. You can always be on it too, off and on, like Scott does on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he pops in and out too. And it's always fun when Scott pops in and out. And of course, this is a blast too here. Looking at our clock, wow, yeah, 35 minutes have already gone by. It's just really amazing.
And each show's an hour then?
Yeah, close to an hour.
Gotcha.
And I'll play that part of that theme song at the end. I'll say Maranatha, greeting. And that's how I say goodbye. You know, I say, till our next show, Maranatha. So, that term Maranatha refers to the second coming of Christ. And you can also use it as a greeting. It's Hebrew too. To say Maranatha. It's like saying goodbye or keep the faith or whatever you want to say. I just chose Maranatha. That's pretty cool. Because I have a Hebrew name, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Hebrew, yeah. And, you know, like I said, if I share things from the Old Testament or whatever, I'm not here to convert. I'm just sharing the stories or whatever.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So, let's get back to talking about you. So, let's see. I asked you about future plans.
Yep.
So your future plans?
There's
Just
I
don't know?
kind of want to find a place like this. I don't know exactly where I want to live yet, but
Okay.
I've enjoyed working at MCAT and could see
So you'd
myself
like to keep working at MCAT and maybe
or maybe
do
somewhere
something
else,
in
in like a
journalism?
different city. Yeah, something around in there.
Yeah. Would it be more like an anchor reporting or field reporter, or
I kind of want to be
maybe,
more behind the scenes, doing like the editing type of stuff.
Yeah, they have stuff like that. I think they call them extras. They used to. About 30 years ago, like say The Price is Right with Bob Barker, they would have what they called extras that worked on a set of a particular show at CBS headquarters, and they would be serving water maybe, or you know, getting tickets or something. And some actors actually got started that way, being an extra on a film or behind the scenes. Now, you know, in 2017, in 2018, I don't know what they're doing now. I'm sure they're not doing the same thing they did 30 years ago.
I'm not sure. I know I have an internship that I have to do during my senior year, so
Okay.
I'm planning on doing something similar
The
to that.
internship will be here?
I don't think it'll be at MCAT, but it'll be somewhere in Missoula.
Okay. So if they still do interns in these studios, maybe you can think of that. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be a way to get my foot in the door.
I don't know.
Started.
We're talking 30 years ago, so they probably don't do that anymore. I don't know. But they used to have extras on soap operas and all kind of fun things like that. So just food for thought, you
Yep.
know, that when that time comes. Because you won't be doing that for another year or two probably at this point, right?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 more years. I
Yeah.
think.
Well, my advice would be just take your time and get as much learning as you can. Unless you luck up and some
Somehow.
executive says, hey, we'll give you 6 figures. Take it.
If that happens, I'm dropping out of school.
Yeah, I know, because you can always go back to school later, you know what I mean? That school's not going to go nowhere. At University of Montana will be there probably 50 years from now.
The money will go somewhere, though.
Yeah. Now, I know that some people frown on dropping out of school to take the big money, but I think it depends on the context.
In the circumstance, for sure.
Yeah, because if you're an actor and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, we want to hire you for this, I think it'd be to your best
Yeah,
interest to take
You
that.
almost have to take it.
Instead of wait till you get your diploma and then the door not open like that again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story about I have a brother named Ted who works in Hollywood. He's a film director, writer.
Okay.
He's
cool.
not an actor. I don't blame him. He's not interested in that. But do you know who Alan Alda is, the actor on MASH?
I
Plays
know that
Hawkeye
name.
Pierce,
Oh, okay.
the main character of MASH. Well, my brother used to work at a store called Safeway. He was a checker. You know how they just check out groceries and stuff. And he was pursuing, you know, working in film behind the scenes. A door had opened where, and this is a true story, Alan Alda was coming through Northern California to do a movie, and my brother got chosen to shoot those scenes with Alan Alda.
Oh, that's cool.
And so normally with a job, you always ask if you can have permission to take a day off. And for whatever reason, Safeway said no. Safeway told my brother, no, you got to be here to work. You can't go taking time off. So my brother was stuck with a decision. Do I go and shoot this movie with Alan Alda, which is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or do I just stay here and work at the store? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, that's a tough decision.
If my brother had stayed with Safeway, the chances of that happening again would have been slim and none. And then the chances of, even if that would have opened again, which is not likely, they could have said no again. So my brother said, hey, I'm not going to that store. I'm filming this movie. I'm thinking of my
He quit
career.
his job then?
No, he just didn't show up for work. He went and filmed that scene, and it paid off. That's what cracked the door open for him to be a writer. And as soon as he finished that scene with Alan Alda, you know, for however long it was, like a couple of weeks or something like that, that broke that door wide open.
Has your brother written any movies or anything?
Yeah,
that I might have
he's one of
seen?
the writers for Big Brother, but he doesn't use his real name. You know that Big Brother show?
I don't think
It's like this reality show.
Okay.
But see, my brother did a lot of music videos too, and writing scripts for movies. Some of his movies are out. They're not like the big movies, but they're big enough. So He just doesn't use his real name as far as some things. Some he does, and some he doesn't. But my point is, like when we're talking about if somebody were to offer you something, a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with schools and colleges, but they put so much emphasis on, you've got to get this education, you've got to do this before you do anything else, and I kind of disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't think I need a piece of paper to reaffirm, like, if I
That's
can do
my
the
point,
actions or not.
because even with me, I didn't graduate from the conservatory. You know what my first job was?
What?
Loyola Marymount University in California. I don't know if you ever heard of that school. It's
Uh-uh.
prestigious, like, Catholic school. And when I was 20 years old, I got the opportunity to do all of their music functions for that whole campus, that whole university, because they didn't have a marching band or a pep band or anything. Like they go to a basketball game, there was no national anthem. They just go on there and just call the players in. And I used to take trumpet lessons. I wasn't great, but I played well enough where I could play the national anthem. That's how I got started in show business, even though I knew how to play the piano.
That's cool.
I took that trumpet, and they would let me play the national anthem at Loyola Marymount University in the center of that big old gym in front of all. And my days start spread out like this, you know? That's how I got started. 5 months later, I got an opportunity to study with a guy named Buzz Blackwell, who was the singer of Little Richard's manager. You probably won't know Little Richard, but he was this famous singer of the rock and roll 50s era. And that guy took me into his home, and I lived with him and trained for 3 years, practicing and studying, and it just cracked that whole door open. And by the time I was 26, I was in Las Vegas playing.
Oh, man. I bet that was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was. I played with Pat Gidry and the High Rollers, and there couldn't have been a more fun job. All I had to do was just go to work and take that trumpet and just play that stuff in the background while those more experienced musicians were there. And that's how I got my feet wet.
Got started.
Yeah. But see, the point is, if I had stayed at that conservatory, that probably never would have happened. And then I would have probably graduated and then had to try knocking on doors, or like my brother. And I think he got fired from Safeway, but it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Come on. You know, movie star picks you to film his movie, you better show up.
Yeah, I'm taking that deal.
Yeah, and my brother was lucky enough to get that opportunity. Alan Alda is one of the biggest stars in Hollywood to this day. He after the MASH series ended, he did what was that? It was like this lawyer kind of show or something. I can't remember it, but Alan Alda was like one of the main characters on there. It was sort of like Law and Order,
Okay.
to describe it. It's a way to describe it. But my point is, school is fine, college is fine, and if you get to do it, do it. But sometimes doors open, like sports figures. You hear about this all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, we want you to sign for this team here for a few years. Take it, because you can always go back to school later.
No,
I know that some people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine. They're within their right. But my take is, if some outrageous door opens, take it.
Yeah, you can always go back.
You can always go back to school. Just take it. Because a lot of people, they're spending 4 and 5 years in school, and then they don't even get the job that they've studied for.
Yeah.
So it's just food for thought. So you're young, and you'll know. I always tell people, just follow your heart. When that door cracked for me at Loyola, I was like, I am not passing this up.
Take that.
I mean, I was the solo musician for that whole university campus. And so the chancellor heard me playing, the chancellor of the school at that time. He said, hey, kid, you're doing stuff for us. We got to make this up to you. They gave me free room and board.
Oh, that's nice.
At that school. I didn't have to sign up for classes or anything. All I had to do was just show up for every event that they threw in my face in. And it was a lot. Schools can be pretty big when you're doing all their music, whether it was a frat party or a school thing or whatever event that school had, whether it was even in the public, not just the school itself, but a public event. I did it all.
Were you just playing trumpet mostly then? Or other
at
instruments
that
too?
time.
Okay.
Well, I knew how to play the piano, but I wasn't no Doc Severinsen or anything like that, but I was able to play well enough for the functions and stuff. And that's how I got started. That's how I broke in. That's how that door for me broke. And then when I studied with Bumps Blackwell, it really cracked that door open. And when I got to Vegas at 26, oh boy.
Oh man.
And I played there for quite a while. My career changed though. When I got into my early 30s, I started working with the Salvation Army. And that turned into a 12-year gig.
Oh man.
Can you believe that? So that was my history. And then I started focusing on the piano when I got into my 40s. And I started playing at the Northern Hotel and the other hotels and so on.
So how did you come to Montana then?
I just decided I wanted to get out of the big city.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose Montana.
Yep, you definitely got out of the big city here.
Yeah, I just got tired of going 5 miles an hour on a 5-lane
Mhm.
highway every day, and just the crime and all that stuff. And as I was getting physically older, for me, it was getting harder to play the trumpet, and it was harder to keep that up and the piano.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was like 40 or 41, I just decided to put the horn away because I had a lot of memories,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been playing the piano ever since. And I've just been blessed. My youth, it was a trumpet mostly. Now it's the piano. But I knew how to play the piano all along anyway, so it's not like I had to, you know, start all over.
So where are you from originally?
I was born in Alaska,
Oh man.
and Air Force brat. And then I grew up in Sacramento, because we traveled everywhere, you know. Taiwan, overseas, just back and forth across the U.S.
So you've seen lots of places then.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, but getting back to the story here, I know everybody's college experience is different. And with you wanting to get into what you want to get into,
Yep.
if a door were to just crack for you like that, say Brad Pitt comes knocking on your door, I think it'd be in your best interest to take that gig, you
Yeah.
know? Because that doesn't happen very often with people.
I could at least make some money and then go back to school.
Of course.
It'd be cheaper
that's
that
the
way
point.
then.
Yeah, just take a little hiatus from school, you
Mhm.
know? And 45 minutes, more than 45 minutes, we got about 10 minutes left. But I wanted to just say thanks for hanging out with me, and the television audience can see young Breyer's work here. You can look up any Asaph Cafe here and see Breyer's work.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah,
It's been
and
fun.
yeah, and then also you could probably use it as a good resume too.
Mhm.
Feel free to use any of the links you've done. You know, I don't care.
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
I'll
my
probably add it to my
attitude is
portfolio.
like there's room out there. You know,
Mhm.
there's room out there for everybody. Well, let me ask you a few more questions. We still got about 10 minutes left. First of all, I again, thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you get to do everything you always wanted to
Yeah.
do, because you never know where life's going to take you. And I know I was 20 years old when that stuff started happening. How old are you now?
I'm 20, so that's
yeah,
pretty
so yeah,
crazy.
when I was your age, yeah, seriously, yeah, I was at Loyola when I was 20 years old. I was at Loyola all by my little old self. They called me the one man bad trumpeter. I even got to go to the NAA, what did you call it, the basketball
The
playoffs?
NCAA tournament.
NCAA playoff, yeah. And this was interesting because Loyola got won to the point that they got to go to those playoffs, and we went to Tempe, Arizona. And Tempe, Arizona had this outrageous marching band, and Loyola just had little of me. But see, what was interesting about that is because I was by myself, at the time I could play something off of a television show that a marching band's not going to have,
Mhm.
and it worked. So I treated it like I was a mascot, and it worked. But yeah, I was out there all by myself at the basketball playoffs until Loyola finally got defeated.
That's pretty cool. What year was that in?
Oh gosh, this must have been about 1980, something like that. Yeah, 79, 80, somewhere around there at that time. But see, at the point that I was your age now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 59 now, so I've already got to do all the fun stuff. So if those doors crack for you, I would say take it. Plus, you're probably lucky enough to have the support of your family too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and of course your family's probably going to see me sharing my opinion about. So you guys can have fun talking.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm not here to enforce my views or anybody. I'm just saying that when that door opened for my brother, he took it, and when it opened for me, I wasn't about to pass that up. And there's not a lot of people who make Vegas at 26. And I'm not talking playing downtown.
Mhm.
I was on a main strip with the Riviera and all those,
Oh man.
you know, the major hotels. And of course, all the other musicians that were with that group I was lucky enough to be in, they were more experienced than me, obviously, because they were either from Vegas or had been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my chops.
You were probably pretty young compared to the rest of them. Too.
Well, I was. They were like in their 30s and 40s
Mhm.
compared to, I was only 20 years old or 23 or 4, something like that by that time. But that's the way to get the experience, you know, the on-the-job training, and I did, so. And I played in Vegas twice, so. But it was fun. And Pat Guidry is still singing after all these years. I mean, they had his name up on the main marquee, like, you know, with Wayne Newton and all those kind of guys of that time period. My boss, his name up there, big giant spread.
That's really cool.
So, yeah, I was just lucky enough to get picked, just like my brother was lucky enough to get picked. That kind of stuff doesn't happen often, so. In the meantime, just, I say follow your dreams, you know?
In the meantime, I'll just keep going to school and hoping and praying that.
Yeah, you never know. And just this show could be a resume, like I mentioned too. Let me play something here. I didn't do much playing today, but that's okay.
That's okay.
You know the song?
Maybe.
You don't recognize that? Secret Agent Man is the name of it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Especially that part right there. That yeah, Secret Agent Man.
It sounded familiar. I just couldn't.
Yeah, what was interesting about that was in 1966, a singer named Johnny Rivers actually introduced that song to the world, and it became a #1 hit. It was so popular that there was a spy show, a black and white spy show called Danger Man. Well, you won't know. This is way before Roger Moore and Sean Connery and all. So they took that theme song, Secret Agent Man, and that was the title to Danger Man. So just a little piece of history there. Well, do you have anything planned after this? You want to do a second taping, or you want to just go back to work, or what do you want to do?
Let me check my schedule and see what Joel has planned for me. And then
All right,
if I have
and then we can
openings.
just do part 2 of this if you want.
Yep.
But anyway, we're out of time.
Okay.
See how fast that
Yeah,
went?
that went super fast.
Do you have any final words you want to say?
Well, just thanks for having me on your show. It's been fun.
Yeah, and I didn't do much piano playing today, but I wanted to just focus on young Breyer here. And you remind me of me when I was your age.
Yeah.
Really, when I look at you and I'm like, cool, this young man's going to probably soar. And that's really encouraging and cool when you see that, you know. And of course, you're in the computer age, so no telling what you might get yourself into about.
Who knows what the future's going to look like.
Yeah, Que Sera, Sera. There was a famous song that talked about that. You never know what's going to happen in the future. Singer name, you won't know her, Doris Day. She's like 95 now, so there's no way you would know her. But in her heyday, it was Que Sera, Sera. Your parents will probably know that song. It was one of her biggest hits. Que Sera, Sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. And she was just this really good-looking blonde movie star actress and did movies in the 40s and stuff. Doris Day. She was just a sweetie. All right, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of this version of Asaph Cafe, and this is the last taping unless we do another one later. I want to take this opportunity with Breyer here to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas. You have any final words?
Yeah,
Final
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everybody.
All right, and so until our next show, Maranatha. And I freeze on that chord. Well, just sit there, make yourself at home till I shut everything down, and then you can find out what your schedule's like.
All right, sounds good.